Hello, and this is PK's Rebalancing Mod Showcase. I'm going to be doing the second half of this first sit-down session now. This is still part of the post-audio. So, having left us off where we just shot a man in the face because he was being mean and trying to rob us, we had to walk away from the zombies, and unfortunately, there's not really a lot of them around, so it is going to be walking away from them. But even if there were, I have a knife spear, a wooden axe, a shotgun, a Molotov if things get nasty. The likelihood of a problem happening, very small. Armor's great to have, but I don't even need it. So, I did not review this one to the same depth that I did the first one. However, I should still have a pretty good idea what I did last night or so. Okay, so here we are running off. Scratch that, I think we're actually walking off. Yeah, it was very, very harrowing. Now, my objective now will be to find a nice place to take a nap, or continue looting, or find a vehicle. I do believe I do all three. The nice place to take a nap is great, but dark is prime raiding time if you are not capable of killing hordes. So let's see what we can do. Now, as I said, it's not a huge city. There's a respectable number of monsters, but it's going to be nowhere near, threatening. And as you can see, I'm not even really trying to kite them or anything special. It's not really necessary. Now that I have my suit of armor, and I have a place to loot, and I'm relatively safe, the most important thing is to find what I want without becoming overwhelming, and you have to attempt to not try to compromise your position. Which sounds simple, but it's a relatively vague statement, isn't it? Telescopic umbrella. That is going to be your primary way to stop things like acid rain. Unfortunately, I can't do a whole lot with the acid rain without editing the hardcode, and I've tried once or twice to look at it and see what I can do, but I've been unsuccessful in changing it. What I want to do is to make acid rain have a lessened chance of affecting you if you're next to a building or a tree or in a hole or whatever. What I would like to do is make acid rain cause morale damage to monsters who are afraid of being hurt. That's all animals, by the way. And what I would like to do is to actually cause it to cause you actual damage. Small amounts, it accumulates enough. So, essentially, if you're wet enough, or if it's just hard enough rain, whatever it happens to be, it can start causing some kind of damage if you're Well, that's the thing. That's a little more complicated than that, isn't it? Because if you're wearing a full-length robe, you might be protected against some of it, but once it seeps through, it's just going to burn you. Even worse, because it's on that robe. But anyway, so it's a vague statement talking about your goals for the second night, and this is the second night. But essentially, you'll learn by playing and dying. A lot of dying went into learning how to play properly. Excuse me. Okay, a lot of playing went into dying and learning. The biggest thing I've learned to watch out for is staying away from city streets. I do want a car, but the streets themselves are going to be ridden with all kinds of zombies, and it's relatively hard to sneak by them, especially now that they're smelling better. You do need to go to streets to find the cars, but you learn pretty quickly to just watch for the telltale signs of them being around, and to run inside. You see how I have a nice choke point to fight them with? I didn't need to retreat there. I remember that specifically. But since there's a soldier there, For instance, I know he has pretty good armor, and piercing damage is better at piercing armor, but it's by no means magic. A nice hefty wood axe will pierce through the bashing armor and the cutting armor, no problem. The extra damage more than makes up for the armor he has. So, it's really a matter of learning the signs of where they are, where they'll be. It's understanding which buildings have special spawns attached to them. For instance, and this is in core game too, I don't add this, there was a holster there. I completely did not pick that up because I'm silly. But anyway, electronic stores, guaranteed to have some shockers hanging out by them. They have a special spawn just for that. There's things like garages, occasionally spawn something like a Brute or a Hulk inside. I guess the mechanics. Things like, swimming pools and parks, obviously. Parking lots tend to be vehicle spawning areas, but the vehicles are occasionally on, and by occasionally I mean a lot more often than you would prefer. It tends to be a pretty negative place to go. If you hear the noise in the parking lot, move it along, guys. But while you're raiding, and especially for a character like this, he's got his inventory full up. You're going to want to focus on small things you can take with you, or large things that are considered prizes. That in mind, you want enough food and enough water for the time being, and you want medical supplies, books, and maybe more armor. The most important place for me, if I could pick one place to go in a house, will be the bathroom. Because I want those medical supplies. I want the pills, I want the vitamins, I want the healing supplies, I want the thread, I want all of that. The dresser's a pretty important place to go too, because that's going to have a lot of the supplies you want. It's going to have things like flashlights. It's going to have anything you might need. The third place would be like the kitchen and dining room, but by the time you get there, you may as well stop looking. Oh, this is a bow and arrow house, a hunting house. I'm not really sure which one's the dog house. But there is a house in the game that spawns dogs explicitly. Which is nice, though, because it does help change up the variety of the critters. So as you can see, I'm just kind of meandering around the back of town. I'm not looking for a vehicle explicitly, but it is definitely on my list. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of roads in this town. The chances of finding a car are somewhat reduced. Still. Now, I do have an affected head, and it is in the yellow bar, but you have a chance to heal infection over time, dependent upon your health. And even just a bite wound, which is that, you have a chance. So if you give it a couple hours, you'll be fine. Just make sure you get it cleaned up before. I nerfed first aid kits ever so slightly to have a 90% chance of curing the green infection, but it has a 99% chance of curing the bites. So, it is possible, and even occasionally happens, where you just do not clean the wound properly with the first aid kit. And you're going to have to deal with that, plan for that, live with that. I did add a homemade antiseptic. What it is it's pine sap. You just collect a couple of boughs, and then you boil them in some water, and I think there might be some salt involved, but all of that is pretty easy to get together if you're in the wilderness. If you have like level 1 surviving and a couple of rocks, you can make a pot. If you have water nearby, which is a river or a funnel, which you're going to need if you live in the wilderness anyway, that's fine. The pine boughs, maybe you're making a shelter, which I've never done myself. I'm under the impression it's a 1-tile wide tent. Okay, which will be helpful for things like acid rain, I guess. But all of this is pretty easy to get your hands on. It has something like a 40% chance of curing the infection. Now, it's not great, but it's certainly better than nothing. And you can also make it with the wasp spit, the wax from the wasp walls, not the paper walls, although I can probably mod that in pretty easy, and I might, because it's a nice thing, and I'm not trying to be too strict about it. I want it to reflect real life, but it doesn't have to be 100% realistic. Like the smoke machines, for instance, I've added those in. They're part of the attempt to allow some measure of stealth in the game. Especially now that animals can smell, it's a lot harder to sneak around. Not necessarily a bad thing, although we all hated it when it first came around. I think I certainly didn't like it. But you live and learn. Anyway, so we have things like the smoke machines that they take 2 lard, or 2 tallow, or some flour. The flour, is my understanding, is the actual proper ingredient, but upon thinking about it, flour can be hard to get if you're not milling your own stuff, which I don't know much about, because I don't farm in this game. I've tried a few times, especially with survivors when they're involved, but survivors themselves are just not that good yet. Not with the whole make a fort, live in it thing. Here we go. I've made my way over to this parking lot, looking for a good vehicle. Here I risk a chance with the flashlight, but that's because there were no zombie noises around, and I was standing in the middle of it. It's perfectly possible that they can see me, and it's likely, but you can move by the time they come over. I do believe this truck works. Yes, it does. So we need to get a little bit of gas in it, and we need to let that battery charge. Now, not to get off track from this talk about chimes and smoke machines and all that, but the vehicle, the most important thing about the vehicle, that you check its engine, you check its wheels, and you check the controls. Those are the 3 biggest things that are going to stop you. Next, you want to check its battery and gas tank. Now, without controls, wheels, or an engine, or with a faulty engine, you're not going anywhere. If the engine is purple or red, you should probably move on. But if it's faulty, it's got about a 60-40 chance of actually turning on, even if it's green. It really depends on what the specific fault is, and you won't be able to see that until you get in it. You see that AR-15 that I found in the trunk of this car? Now that's nice. That makes me happy. Can't we all have nice things like that in the trunks? Anywho, the yellow battery is got about a 60-40 chance as well. It's going to be more likely to be drained than not. So if you see a yellow battery, you might want to consider moving on or taking one out of a different car. But not all the time. Yellow, somewhere within that yellow range of damage, which is reflected by 4/5 health, it starts to drain. Same thing with the gas tanks. Somewhere in that 4/5 of health, they start to leak. And they'll leak first when you're sitting still and after you start driving it. It's weird, but when the car's idling and there's a leaky gas tank, it will start leaking, and it will leak more when it is more damaged. When you drive at certain angles, now we are looking from above at a bird's eye view. Orthologically, at each of the cardinal directions, your car could be traveling. It's at a different angle. The gas tank can be leaking when you start veering to the left or right, but not when you drive straight. This is because of how the game simulates a vehicle position, and I presume momentum, but I don't know. So the car is up and down right now. As long as I keep moving and driving in one of these 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, or west, there may not be a leak, but as you'll shortly see with this car, it will leak a little bit as I'm driving diagonally in some direction. So it is to your advantage to drive in a straight line with a damaged vehicle. Very weird thing. After you get a vehicle, your first concern is to make sure the battery is charging, because you want that battery to be at 100% as soon as possible. With the reduced amount of charges these batteries have and the increased amount of power that headlights take, that engines take, that, oh, heavens forbid you find one with a floodlight, you may as well pee your battery down the sink before you use a floodlight. But it's important to get it charged, that's the point. And then you want to make sure it has enough gas. 10% gas will last you for a day and a half, a day. Really depends on what you're doing with it, how fast you're going, and which specific engine it is, but all of them are basically the same at this point. Now, back to this smoke machine that you can make with semi-realistic pirates and everything, it is part of a group of items that I've been adding. The first thing I did was add scrap chimes, which I'm actually going to have to buff at some point. But what you do is you take some string and some scrap, and then you're able to throw that, and it's going to make a lot of clanking together, and the idea is that things like zombies will hear the noise and go to the noise. Part of the problem is, if you can't see the zombie, you don't know they're there, not a big deal. If you have night vision, you could probably make a lot more use out of something like that. Then I added a flare, or I changed the flare. The original flares light as soon as you strike them, which is fine. I mean, whether or not you're breaking something off or unscrewing something to mix chemical, whether you do that, that's how it happens in real life after all. You unscrew it, they mix, whoosh. But what I've done is I've done it so that you activate it first. Let's say there are two liquid chemicals that have to mix before they can produce light, and then you're able to throw it and get out of the way of this light. I like it because it does allow you to spread some light somewhere without exposing yourself. Now, you can't do anything with it once it's lit because it's on the ground in light, and presumably the reason you're using it is because you don't want to be in light. But, that's not my choice to make, that's your choice. And this allows you to hide behind a wall and throw a flare and see what's there. It's a nice touch, and I've used it once or twice. I enjoy it, but I'm definitely more a brutish character than a stealthy guy. Just saying. And then I added smoke candles and smoke machine. Smoke machine is going to be something you can craft. You cannot craft these candles, but what they do is they produce smoke every now and then, and that destroys your scent, which is always around you. If you put this in front of an open window, the smoke candle, it's going to do a very decent job of covering up your smell. And the smoke machine does that, but much more. When you have a smoke machine, you can leave it there in a gap 4 or 5 tiles wide in your house, and you could be reasonably safe from smell. It produces enough smoke to actively blot out all the smell in a single direction. And it does a pretty good job of it if you carry it on your person. Unfortunately, it is very large, so hopefully that helps balance it out a little. But the idea is it covers up your smell. Things can still see you, and believe me, I definitely buffed a couple things night vision, but you do get that nice passive bonus. So there you go. Now, I did loot this fire truck. I'm not too keen on putting any of this stuff on because while the armor is good, none of it fits me, I don't think. And even if it did, it's very encumbering. It's certainly protective from acid and everything else, but the armor I have on now I'm fairly content with. There's a reason I like it, because I can craft it quickly, I can craft it with almost every character, and it does a decent job for what it is. So I'm doing okay. Now, we have this fire truck. It has water in it. One peculiarity to know about water, or for that matter anything that could have parasites in it or make you sick, is that if you dump it into a fuel tank of some kind and then siphon it back out, it will automatically be guaranteed to not make you sick and not have parasites. The reason for that is presumably to do with the vehicle code, but the effect is the same. You'll still get unhealthy bonuses for drinking uncleaned water, but it will not have parasites. So if you're ever in need of something, strap a fuel tank to the bottom of your shopping cart and siphon the water out as you need it. Make sure you take some vitamins, and you should be able to counteract any of the negativity there. So yes. Now, while I'm driving around, one of the most interesting things, one of the best things to go grab are these ambulances. Keep an eye out for them. They are truly treasure troves. I mean, I love the SWAT van, and I stopped at the security van, but these ambulances are what I live for on the road. They have the gas you're gonna want, they have the supplies you're gonna want. They are gorgeous things to stop at. What am I doing? Oh, I guess I forgot to siphon out the gas. I need gas after all. So I do believe it is time for me to leave town. One thing I hate about the night and driving at night is that you can't see anything with the default headlight configuration. I like it, don't get me wrong, it gives you a reason to want to make modifications to your vehicle, but it's not great. Okay, I think we're going to take a pit stop here. And the reason for this is I want to clean some of these messenger bags. First, we make a circle like we're a dog, and we want to check to see if there's any baddies in the area. And avoid the shrubs, because, you know, shrubs are like the most dangerous predator of a vehicle. Hey, look, a friend. Okay, let's talk to our buddy Charles. Chelsea. We should travel together. He's got bolt cutters. Bolt cutters are a surprisingly rare piece of item. It's got its uses, definitely situational. Like, chain fence gates are a big example. Bar gates are a good example if you don't want to cut through. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Okay. See this guy? Turns to flee. He's a jerk. You know what we do to jerks? We alert the horde. The jerk. Scarred zombies are going to be basically like the default. They don't have very good vision. They're covered up. They drop their honeycomb, which is a source of wax. And they evolve into something called a scabby zombie, which does cause poison on hit. I don't think it lasts as long as anything else I make, but it's a nice excuse to add the effect in, so I did that. I guess they didn't take to him. It's a nice thought though, isn't it? And here's where we find out about our gas leaking. It's unfortunate, but we can make do with it because it does not seem to be as bad as this. You see the gas is going at a diagonal trail though. Like I said, cardinal directions. Cardinal directions. We're showing that off right now. I'm leaving town anyway, so it's not a big deal. A lot of evolved children zombies in this town. I've noticed that the RNG seems to go through quote-unquote phases of activity, where a lot of times it'll spawn something, particularly 4 or 5 worlds, and then I'll see something. It's just the random deviation, and sometimes you see patterns where they're not. See this purple gas tank? It is going to continue to leak. I should probably stop filling it up. I guess it must have gotten smacked at some point or something. I don't know. But we do have a vehicle. We have no clue where the nearest town is. We don't know anything about the specials nearby. There's not a whole lot to talk about in the terms of future plans because I don't know what's there. The future plan is to go find a dome structure so I can show that off, of course. I would be silly not to. But we can start by doing this. I can use some sheets to further level up my sewing and to keep a supply of goodies. Our good friend Snot Gobbler, you know, they don't have the ability to vomit on you. Instead, they burst into the bile on death. The children zombies, as I've said last time, are all going to be weaker. Well, I don't know if I did say that last time. They're all going to be weaker than their adult versions, for whatever reason. Well, presumably they're smaller size, but it's a real shame. They nerf the dodge, and the children just aren't the same. Our duct tape, that's going to go well on a basic repair kit. That's going to go well for doing things like headlights and stuff, which I'll probably do off screen before I start the next one. Okay. Now, I do take that gallon of vinegar. I dump out the vinegar and I fill it with water. Water is much more useful to me than vinegar. Like I said, I don't do too much in the way of cooking, but I do a lot of water drinking. Turns out I need it to live. And with all the whiskey you consume, you dehydrate fairly fast. It's important to do that. Now, I'm sure you're aware, but I can reiterate this. What you use to bash plays a big role in how long it takes to do something. Bashing damage It's exactly that. It only is counted for bashing damage. If you use a low bashing damage weapon, like a knife spear, you're going to have a hard time breaking things. You're going to end up hurting the weapon, dependent upon what material it is, and it's just no good for anyone. So you can keep like a heavy stick around or pick one up off the ground and start bashing things with it. It's perfectly okay. A lot of people like to carry home wreckers because home wreckers can actually pierce walls. That's right. Craft yourself a home wrecker. You can actually puncture walls. That's a great way to get into the gun stores and things like that. Excuse me. Well, there we go. We just want to finish off these little buggers. We want to unload our goodies. And we want to move it along. The rest of this episode is going to be me driving out of town about to the intersection where I cut off at a three-way. So if you want to skip the rest of this, there's not a whole lot more to talk about. I've got myself a hacksaw, but a wrench is better than a hacksaw because a wrench allows you to install seating, it allows you to take out batteries, it allows you to, I think, change headlights. The hacksaw does have its uses though. So I mean, you do need it for vehicles and to cut through bars. So I finished cleaning off my wound. Here I am showing you. Now, because I have 2 in first aid already, I do get more healing out of my items. But you can see I did nerf the first aid kit a little. You know, I do think I used this AR at some point. Something that I did not like came up after me. I think we popped it in the eye hole, or we threatened to at least. We are doing a-okay here though. Like I said, guys, I'm kind of sorry. There's not a whole lot to talk about at this moment because I don't have a lot going on in the playthrough. This is still day-to-day survival. But I was testing his vision range right there, so I can make myself my washboard. Yep, obviously, I had to be a Rottweiler right there. Now, one thing I did add was diseased attacking. It's not for every single zombie, but things like rotten dogs, yes, going to have a disease chance. They're going to bite at you, and if they hit you with a special attack, there is a certain chance for you to actually catch a disease. And the disease can be something like tapeworms, it can be something like tetanus, or it could be just nausea and random sickness. I'm sure some of you have noticed by now that you have an inflammation effect. It's lessened if you are disease resistant, and if you took like a flu med, it's lessened, and one of them is even lessened if you take a bandage or something of that nature. There we go. I'm unsure what I did. I think I was actually sitting there, readjusting myself maybe? I don't know. I'm not a big fan of sitting down for hours on end, after all. I'm a fairly active guy. Okay, now, I do love that some attention is finally being paid to this filthy clothing, because I've been using it since its inception, in fact. And, fun story, multivitamins are 1/100th of a liter of volume. So having 100 of them will encumber you for, or what used to be 4. It still is 4 inside the Jasons, by the way. Weight is measured in kilograms inside the Jason Ross, and kilograms is measured in 1/1000ths. 1,000ths. So, go figure. I'm doing a lot of organization, my body aches, there's my minor inflammation, a stout immune system, or proper medical treatment might reduce the inflammation. It got cut off. I'll have to see if I can't make it more concise later. Like I said, Not a terrible bunch going on. We're doing okay for ourselves, though. I think I might have to start my own game for my own personal use, but the problem with that is I get confused between them pretty easily. You know? It's easy to forget that you have one item in one place and the other in the other. Here we're going, here we're going, here we're going. Tribot. That is correct. Wreckage like that has a chance to spawn any of the robots, any of the police bots, any of the military bots, and zombie grenadiers still do spawn, and despite their nerfs, they're still fairly dangerous. So I do not think I corrected this square box thing problem yet with the colors being stretched. I can do that for the next video, I believe, but not gonna happen for this one. Sorry. Here we are, we just kite the little zombie around. He's having a good time being kited. He likes it. Never had that kind of thing when he was a kid, so he enjoys it now. Nice kite. Okay. Everyone is happy. And it's bedtime. Yes, it's probably a decent way to make sure the immediate area is safe, is to just hang out in front of your headlights for a bit. Yeah, no. Now these aching pains, they only last for half a day, a little over a day. But, yeah. Gotta be careful it's not a parasite, because parasites, I've actually scheduled them to last for months. Actual months. And that's to simulate their permanent nature until you flush them out of your system. You should still be able to flush them out of your system with antiparasitics. I don't know if antiparasitics are 100% effective. I seem to recall them failing once or twice, but I don't know what killed those zombies. I don't particularly care enough to stick around. Any number of wild animal could have done it. I mean, there could even be a Jabberwock out there somewhere. Everyone loves Jabberwocks. Jumper cables. They are not the most useful item out there, but they have their uses. Say if you get an electric car, get yourself a pair of jumper cables. If you happen to find a car that will start up, that is gasoline or diesel, you can start it up, hook up the battery, and you can use it. Now you saw how I yelled at the bear and I told him to go away, and he went away? That's because we're buddies. He understood. Now, for some reason I think somebody's under the impression I added that. I did not. That's in the game inherently. You try that with a core game bear, you're going to get the same result. The difference in core game bear is a giant punk. Imagine that. The animal that weighs 4 to 5 times what you weigh and can pop trunks and shatter windshields. Giant punk. You can hand-to-hand to him to death. With no skill. No, I make that different. I change that. It's much better. Be hard-pressed to tell me it's not. So I wanted to follow this up to see if there's like a bridge where I can swap this car over. Now, it's possible even to find a Humvee with a jerry can of diesel in the back of it on a bridge. And then all you need to do is have a good battery. I don't have a way to take my battery out. I think I need a wrench or a plier. I don't have those. But if I get desperate enough, I can actually smash the frame of my vehicle and hope that works. Remember that. You can always smash the vehicle and get the parts off that way if you don't have the proper means to do it the regular way. Probably not recommended, but you can do it, and it will be faster. Actually, smashing vehicle, outboard mirrors does a pretty good job with that. You can just pick them up off the ground after you whack them off with like a baseball bat. Now here I am. I'm going to leave you. Thank you for watching.